What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. Arkansas with another disappointing loss, 4 in a row now, and they're going to have a tough time stopping it from being 5 in a row with a trip to Tuscaloosa on Saturday. We're going to take a look back at the game against Ole Miss. We're going to bring Andrew Ellis on to talk a little bit about it and look ahead to the Alabama game as well. We're going to bring Danny West on as well to talk a little bit about recruiting. All that and more on today's episode of Hog Sports Live. Do you guys know all the ways to watch and listen to this show? You can watch on YouTube, you can watch on Facebook, you can listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere you can think of to find your favorite podcast. If you haven't taken a moment to throw us a 5-star review and you like the content on the show, take a moment and do that on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We'd love to have that from you. Also, we always stream the show on Facebook Live, so if you're not following the page, become one of 90,000 Razorback fans and join in and follow the page on Facebook Live. We always put all of our free content on Facebook, so you can check it all out there also. And of course, we're on YouTube. You can subscribe to that channel and hit the notifications bell so you're alerted anytime we upload new videos. 71%, 72% of the people that watch our videos aren't even subscribed. So take a moment if you haven't done so already. Subscribe, hit the notifications bell so you're alerted anytime we upload new videos. Where are we starting today? Let's start with Arkansas and Mississippi State in 2 weeks. This one had 11 o'clock written all over it. Arkansas and Mississippi State are one of 2 of 4 teams in the SEC that have not won a conference game yet. Mississippi State's got a lot of reasons why they're struggling, obviously, with the passing of Mike Leach, a changeover in coaching and all that stuff, even though Arnett was there before. Arkansas, I'm not sure, really has a good excuse for going 0-4, 0-3 in SEC play. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, but we'll talk about the challenges coming up with beating Alabama here in a minute. They're vast. 11 o'clock. I mean, you're away from home for 4 weeks, and you come home for an 11 o'clock game. It's just tough. It's tough for recruiting especially. I mean, you're not going to get a kid who had a night game in Dallas on the road, coming home, getting home late at night, getting up in the crack of dawn to come to Fayetteville for an 11 o'clock game. So, kills recruiting. I mean, we knew this schedule was awful, and if you didn't win during that schedule at all, you're going to get stuck with an 11 o'clock game against Mississippi State and Fayetteville. So, that's tough. Mississippi State's 3-3, 0-3 SEC. Arkansas is 2-4, 0-3 SEC. 11 o'clock. And what's the network? ESPN. So at least it's on the mothership. It's better than 11 o'clock SEC network game. For those of you ready to transition over to basketball, you're going to have to wait a little bit. October 20th is the next game. UT Tyler, an exhibition, 6:30 p.m. That's a Friday in Bud Walton Arena. And then you get Purdue 8 days later. That'll be fun. In Bud Walton, 3 o'clock game. And then the regular season starts on Monday, November 6th against Alcorn State, 7 p.m. SEC Network Plus. The Purdue game is also on SEC Network Plus. The UT Tyler game doesn't look like it's listed for television. So Arkansas has been disappointing in football, obviously. Not what we expected entirely. If you are disappointed in your internet service, you should check out our friends at OzarksGo. You can reach them at 479-684-4900, OzarksGo.net/hog. I've been in the middle of a sneeze this entire intro, like halfway between a sneeze. I feel like I just stare at this light and I can get it out. Otherwise, we're just going to be half sneeze this whole show. OzarksGo, OzarksGo.net/hog. Offer several different tiers of internet service. You can get Multigig, which is what I use, which is lightning fast. I use a lot of internet, obviously. We have a lot of devices. It's important for me to have a good bandwidth, and that's what is delivered with OzarksGo and the multi-gig service. Gigabit's what I had before this, and it's fantastic too. I think it's probably great for most families. They offer several other tiers. Not going to jack your rates up in year 2. You're going to pay the same great rate in year 1 as you do year 2, so you're not going to see your steadily increasing rate. And my experience has been 100% uptime, so that's fantastic, right? No complaints about the internet. Nobody who comes over has problems connecting to the internet. It's a great service. Northwest Arkansas, north of the tunnel, Missouri, Oklahoma. Go check them out at OzarksGo.net/hog and find out if they're available in your area. Where to begin here? Let's take a quick look at Alabama before we look back. Alabama, according to the Bet Saracen app, is 19.5 point favorites in this one. Obviously, we've seen Alabama smoke Arkansas way worse than that. Last year's game was 49-26 in Fayetteville. They played them pretty well the year before that. In 2021, Arkansas had a pretty good team, 9-win team, and they lost 35-42. The year before that, 52-3, and we've seen a lot of 52-0 scores. 2013, 52-0. 2012, 52-0. Alabama has not lost at home. Well, they haven't lost to a team with a losing record since 2007, since Saban's first year. ULM, I think, was 4-6 at the time. They went on to go 6-6. That's the last time Saban lost to an Arkansas. Like, the idea of Arkansas having lost to these guys 15 years in a row, and that's not including the 2 vacated games, really 17 years. Is it right? 17 years in a row? No, that's right, 15. So 2007 they vacated a game, and then 2005 they had a vacated game also, not 2006, because Arkansas won that game 24-23. Regardless, it's been 15 years technically since Arkansas has beaten Alabama. They're not just going to take this 2-4 team to Tuscaloosa and knock off, 10-11 Alabama, 10-11 ranked Alabama. I feel like they're still battling for Sam Pittman, and that's maybe different than what we saw with the Chad Morris era, where the guys just let go of the rope. They wouldn't fight for their coaches. You've got internal problems. This coach doesn't like that coach. This player doesn't like that player. The old guys don't like the rookies. The offense doesn't like the defense. It was just disastrous, and they're getting smoked by teams that they way outclass. I talked about that a little on the Walk and Talk. It's not what's happening here. They're still battling. They're losing some tough games. You still got to beat BYU at home heading into this 4-game stretch that they had on the road. I mean, everybody knew that, and then you needed to pick one of those off. Not all of them, just one of those 4 games. And then you're in good shape to potentially win 8 games that season, finish out 4-1, finish out the rest of the year. But that's not how the season has gone so far. It's been very disappointing. And it's the offense. I mean, Sam Pittman identified that they have problems on defense, right? He identified that. And they went out and got Travis Williams, Darren Wilson, Marcus Woodson. I mean, they really answered a lot of issues on defense because they recognized. And they brought in, 4 transfer defensive linemen who are all very key players, 2 transfer linebackers, both key players, and 4 defensive backs who are all playing a major role for them. Why didn't they recognize it on the offensive line? They brought in Josh Braun, who arguably might be the guy playing the best for them on the offensive line. But we can go back and look at the recruiting efforts from past year. Sam Pittman's first year, 2020. It's brutal to have to start off like that, 2020, and you go out and you bring in 3 guys. None of them are here anymore. In fact, there's only 2 guys. Jashad Stewart and Dominic Johnson are the only 2 players on the roster from that 2020 recruiting class. It's a tough turnaround. You got a partial staff, if that, not even most of your staff, less than half of your staff already assigned, and you got a couple of weeks to go out and recruit. It's a difficult deal to do in 2020, and then 2021, you had to go, with COVID restrictions. You weren't able to go out, and the guys from the 2021 class, none of those guys are really battling. Terry Wells has been banged up. Cole Carson hadn't really pushed for playing time. It's just like, early on, I get that there's those issues, and other teams didn't really necessarily have to deal with those. However, the transfer portal is there now. You can go out and quickly revamp things. This defense is fine. It's not an elite defense, but when you compare it relative to past Arkansas defenses and certainly what they had last year, I would take this defense all the time. And I've heard people actually complaining about the defense. Defense is playing well enough for them to, aside from the LSU game, the second half, they didn't obviously play very well in that one. But for the most part, they're playing well enough for you to beat and be in these games. If you had this defense and last year's offense, we might be talking about a 10-win team. I just don't understand how they didn't recognize that there were going to be such big issues on the offensive line. And yes, there's other issues. KJ Jefferson not hitting open receivers, probably thinking too much, trying to be too perfect, and making mistakes because of that, and not just being the KJ Jefferson we all know and love that he can be. And it's frustrating to see him out there struggling in this offense. The offense could be a problem too, making such a big change it's obviously something that's making KJ, have to think more about, try to be perfect. He's got a lot on the line, thinking, next level after this season. And that's looking super sketchy right now. So there's a lot of issues like that KJ's dealing with. There's an example of a video, when he had that quarterback draw, if he just cuts it outside, then it just runs it. It's not like it even a cut. It's just like run outside. But, I know the guy's getting banged up. He's getting hammered over and over again. They had 5 sacks on Saturday. In addition to the runs, when he's running the ball and he's getting hit. He's trying to be perfect in the offense. He got a lot on the line. He's a lot of pressure, and he doesn't trust his offensive line. And why would he? Why would he trust him? I mean, I can't even tell really if Dan Enos is a good play caller or not, and everybody's just like throwing stuff at their screen right now because I said that, because I didn't just bash the hell out of Dan Enos. But they can't block anybody. I mean, and I think it was probably a bit of an overreaction. And I'm looking at it too. I'm going like, okay, well, move Kudus inside. That makes a lot more sense than, out on the edge where he's obviously not effective. But that just kind of made everything out of sync, and they kind of wasted a half doing that with the offensive line. But I'm right there too. I'm thinking anything's better than what they've been putting out there. So shuffling this around makes total sense. These guys have practiced those spots before. It makes total sense. But it wasn't the right move, and we saw the offensive line blocked better on Saturday after that, So it's just you can't run the ball. You can't run the ball, so you're not going to be able to pass the ball. Defense can just pin their ears and come after you. They're averaging 111 yards a game. This is an offense that did, like the last 2 years, they've averaged like 230 yards per game on the ground, and they're less than half as good as that right now. That's just astonishing. It's astonishing that it's changed so much, and that the undoing of this 2023 football team in year 4 under Pittman would be the offensive line. Doesn't make any sense, doesn't add up. I mean, Pittman is a guy that was, arguably the top offensive line coach in the entire country when Arkansas hired him. It's just, you never would have expected it. And that's probably a mistake that I made when I'm looking at this team and saying, okay, I think this team can win 8 games. I still think that they have the talent everywhere except for the offense. They're just not ready on the offensive line, and it's just kind of blowing everything up. It really is. 4-2, asking for 4-2 right now, I don't think is insane for them to be 4-2, and even accepting that they'll be 4-3 after this Alabama game, or would be. I don't think that's like super lofty expectations for this team. I think it's reasonable expectations. Super frustrating. Penalties have been a huge issue. I mean, like Brady Latham suddenly just can't stay on. I mean, he just keeps false starting. Like, where is this coming from? I've never seen Brady on the ground so much as an offensive lineman. Where is all this coming from? Devon Manuel deal absolutely has hurt him. They were counting on him, and I reported. I thought Devon was looking pretty good in camp, and when he's been in there, like when he came in against LSU, I thought he was definitely better than Chamblee played. But Chamblee and Kudus they're just not ready yet. They're not ready for these edge guys. Penalties. Poor technique on the offensive line. And that's not just like me saying it. Like, I'm talking about like, people who are former players, and like, DJ Williams has broken this thing down also. Like, people who, analysts and stuff, point to this kind of stuff, like bad technique. But at the same time, these guys just aren't physically ready yet to compete against some of these guys. They're just not. So we can point to past offensive line issues and recruiting, but this is the transfer portal era, and I bet you if Sam Pittman could go back and do it again, then he would have added a couple of more offensive linemen, at least one more, but a couple more probably. And then, you got a question about Ty Washington. Like, why is Ty Washington, like, he's not good enough to play, but the first series he catches 5 passes for 56 yards and a touchdown, has 7 for 90 and 2 touchdowns on the whole day. But, and like, where was he against Texas A&M? You got tight ends out there who can't block, can't catch, and they're playing over Ty Washington, and then we see that from him. Like, what did it take? They just need to see a window, an opportunity, and showed out in practice, because Pittman saw it in practice. Why wasn't it seen up till now? And I know they had Luke Has, but they also run a ton of 2 tight sets. So, anyway, It'll be tough. I mean, damn near impossible to go to Tuscaloosa and win. I'm not giving it a 0% chance, but pretty close. You never say 0%, but it's pretty close. All right, we're going to go to Andrew Ellis now. I'm sure Andrew's got some wildly entertaining things to say to us. He was in Tuscaloosa. He was in Oxford last weekend. For those of you who don't follow Andrew, you can follow him at Andrew Ellis 24/7. He's the HawgSports soon-to-be senior writer. Andrew, how you doing, man?
Trey Biddy, I'm doing wonderful today.
How was your trip to Oxford?
We had a great trip to Oxford.
Mm-hmm.
We went in with the mindset of like, no matter what happens in this game, nothing can take this trip from us. We're just gonna, especially because the game was at 6:30. So there's a lot of trip before that game. So it's like we had plenty of time to enjoy ourselves and kind of just do what we had to do, explore the square, Oxford, the city. We actually didn't even stay in Oxford. We stayed in Olive Branch, Mississippi. Checked out Memphis the night before, but it was a good time. And then we had to watch this football team play another game, and it got a lot less fun.
Yeah, that's what's happened this whole season. It's I mean, at least they battled, I mean, like, they don't have an offensive line. They make mistakes. There's questionable decisions here and there, but like, at least they battle. You can tell they're fighting for Pittman, whereas that's different than what we saw under the Chad Morris regime. But they just don't have the horses to compete. I mean, and then you got KJ throwing 2 interceptions, just very uncharacteristic stuff compared to what we've seen from KJ in past years. Not so much uncharacteristic from what we've seen this year.
No, I think you nailed it right there, and I think that's what's honestly more disappointing or shocking, I guess, is that like we've seen coaches when the coaching tenure is about to be over, you can always tell it's over because the team mails it in.
Right.
You lose the team before you lose the job. And it definitely doesn't look like that. Like this doesn't look like 2017 Brett Bielema seasons. This definitely doesn't look like any 2018 or 19 Chad Morris, where it's like it's just clear that the team is not really in there. There's a disconnect there, and I don't feel that at all. When I talk to when we talk to the players, it doesn't seem like that. You talk to whoever, and you're at practice, it doesn't feel like that.
Same,
but it just seems like they just whatever the best version of this football team is, and really, I'm just going to go with the offense. I want to leave the defense out of it because I think you would agree they played well enough to win the other night.
Yes,
I think they've played well enough to win a lot. I think they've done about what you can ask for out of them. It's not like they're an elite defense. They're not shutting dudes out or anything, but they're giving you a chance to win, and the offense just isn't taking it. But if you just look at this offense piece by piece, like we've seen what KJ Jefferson can do. It's like we have a pretty solid sample size of evidence that KJ Jefferson is a good, competent quarterback. And I would even argue that there's a pretty high ceiling with what you can do with KJ Jefferson. Heck, I might even say there's a pretty high floor just because of his skill set of like, he brings what he brings in the run game. He typically makes pretty smart decisions. He doesn't put the ball in harm's way a ton, although that's changed a little bit this year. I mean, career high interceptions through 6 games. But again, these are not KJ Jefferson traits that we've been seeing for 3 years. It's like we're seeing whatever. I think this has to be the worst possible version of KJ Jefferson in a college offense. I would say Rocket Sanders, we haven't seen a ton of a sample size because he's been injured and in and out and all that. But from what we've seen from Rocket Sanders, this has to be the absolute worst case scenario for his junior season, I would say. And I think you can say that about a few different things. It seems like you're just not getting the full potential of any pieces on your offense. And I mean, that goes for man. I mean, Patrick Kudus seems like a guy who's going to play guard in the NFL for a decade. I think everyone in recruiting kind of saw that. I mean, he was a guy that this coaching staff loved. They couldn't believe they got him. And, he seemed like he was a late bloomer, seemed like a perfect Sam Pittman kind of offensive line prospect. And seems like they can't find a position for him. And the position is staring him right in the face. He's an NFL guard. Like, I don't understand why, like, it hasn't even been a consideration for him to play guard. It's like, oh, well, maybe we'll play him out at tackle because we need a tackle. We'll move him back inside, but we're going to make him have to call the defenses, and he's going to have to be responsible for identifying all these movements as a true sophomore. And it's like, I don't know. It seems like every single piece on the roster. I mean, you mentioned Brady Latham, who we've seen be a productive offensive lineman in the SEC. We've seen Bo Limmer be a productive offensive lineman in the SEC. Every single piece, man for man, is underachieving. And I'm not blaming these players. Like, I just feel like whatever it is offensively, I'm just surprised it has gone this south, It wasn't like when they hired Dan Enos, we all looked around and were like, what the heck? How'd they do that? I think we all just kind of were like, okay, there's some familiarity there. Like, I'm sure they know each other from their time. Like, maybe there's some kind of a master plan here. This seems like a good guy to get the most out of your senior quarterback. And it's just, I can't believe how poorly it's gone. I mean, I really don't know how else to say it. Like, I can't believe it's gone this poorly. That's just all there is to it.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you. I don't think that – I mean, when they hired Enos, it was not like, well, this is the greatest offensive coordinator in the world, but you've got a senior quarterback coming back in KJ who knows how to beat teams, and you figured that Enos would bring that technical aspect to the table with him from his – he's coached a lot of there's like 6 or 7 quarterbacks that are in the NFL right now that Enos coached, and you figured that that's what he was going to bring to the table, but it has just not been a very good marriage. And I'll go back to this too, Andrew. I'm not even sure if Enos is calling terrible plays or not because there's no blocking. There's not a scheme in the world that you can put out there that's going to thrive with poor pass blocking or run block. And if you can't run block, then you can't. I mean, you got to have both. You have to have balance, and that's been something that's always, been a hallmark of this offense was being able to run the ball and pick some great times to throw.
Now, listen, Trey, people don't like excuses in general. I mean, nobody enjoys hearing them, but excuses can be valid, and you can that can be a thing that we can hear you out on. If you're a head coach that is coming off a loss or has a bad team underachieving, like whatever, there can be valid reasons for why, because not every good coach in the country has a great season every year. There's perfectly valid. Your quarterback gets hurt, or we were just super young this year, whatever. I just feel like I honestly think Sam Pittman needs a PR guy to tell him, like, hey, we got to get our excuses in a row, because every time you ask about one position group, the blame gets deflected to a different one. It's like when you ask about the O-line, it's like, well, our running backs aren't making people miss, our quarterback's holding the ball too long, receivers aren't getting open. Then you're like, hey, does Isaac Tesla have an issue getting open? He's like, oh, well, no, we just don't have any time to throw. It's like, oh, is KJ having an issue? Like, is he holding the ball too long? It's like, oh, well, he doesn't have confidence because the O-line is bad. And you just ask about any position group, the blame gets deflected one other direction.
Yeah.
And it seems like it almost seems like he's trying to convince us everything's fine. He's like, oh, no, we're a good football team. We're close or whatever. And it's like, people can see the games. Like, it's been we're halfway through the year here. It's like, we can see that the product is bad. We just need to be told, why is this product bad? Like, what is it exactly that's gone wrong? And it seems like he's trying to convince us that nothing has gone wrong. And it's like, we can see something's going on. I just want some honesty in terms of just like, hey, this offensive line, like in the spring, they were awesome and now they suck. Like, if he said that, like, okay. And he kind of did when you asked him about that. He was like, oh no, everything was fine in the spring. It's just like, I'm having a hard time believing that these issues weren't there before. Like you were saying earlier, like how did they not realize it was going to be this bad, or at least realize it was going to be an issue? And he cites like, oh, we just need to get Devin Manuel back, and it's like, Devin Manuel's, what do you mean back? Like, he's never been a routine member of the offensive line at any point in his career, and he's a redshirt sophomore, so it's not like a problem. But it's like, that can't be your saving grace. The redshirt sophomore who's never played, and he mentioned Tykees Crawford today, which kind of came out of nowhere. It's like, what? It's like, that's the reason. Like, I don't understand. Like, when people get mad that the media doesn't ask questions. It's like, when the questions get asked, the answers are so weird, and it doesn't seem like there's straight information or true information coming back, no matter where it's being asked. So it's like, I don't really know. It just seems like there's no progression happening either, and that's another thing that makes it so disappointing when you watch these games. Is like, if they really were making progress week to week and kind of cleaning up issues, and then different issues arise or whatever, it'd be one thing. But it's like, I think it's just not a very good football team, and it's just disappointing, because I think that whatever our expectation was for this year, I just don't think we thought Arkansas would be a bad football team, and they might be a bad football team.
I just think it's so interesting that, like, they identified the issues on defense and fixed them. I mean, they put a competent defense out there, and they're not like that far away when you consider all the problems that they've had. They lost to BYU by 7, which just can't happen in your backyard with the stretch coming up that they have. But they lost to BYU by 7. They lost at LSU by 3. They lost, to Texas A&M. They were handled, obviously. The defense played pretty well, but the offense was just, stagnant. And then they lost by 7 on the road in Oxford. Individually, each of those games, aside from BYU, I could say LSU, yes, they should be favored to lose that game. Texas A&M, they should be favored to lose that game. Ole Miss, they should be favored to lose that game. However, they should win one of them. They should win one of them. It shouldn't be like an overwhelming odds against them winning these games. They should have won one of those road games, and they damn sure should have beaten BYU at home. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about this. They'd be right on track to where we would expect, even with some of the issues that they're experiencing. But it's been too many penalties here and there. It's been no running game whatsoever. And, KJ's been off, and the offensive line has just been terrible.
Yeah, and I think the BYU game is the one you mentioned where it's like, I know it's tough to be like it all comes down to one game. But it's like one game can change everything. They just change our perception, entire feel. And look, like I don't want to put too much pressure here because they're going to lose to Bama this weekend regardless of what we say or what they do or what happened in the previous few weeks. And so I don't think that like them losing to Bama is going to be another sign of their demise. But I'll tell you this, it ain't going to help. Like I don't know why they would, so I'm just curious as to know like what's happening this week because it's like obviously you can come here and tell us like, oh yeah, we're going in here trying to beat Alabama and all that, but it's like it's bigger than that. Like I feel like there needs to be some signs that need to start happening of like, okay, there actually is something to build on here. There's some progression happening. There's some development or whatever. But yeah, and I don't know. It just seems really funky. And every year you go into college football, every college football team, you have your teams that you're supposed to beat or that you're better than, that you should beat. You have your teams you're not supposed to beat. Maybe you win one of those every now and then. Maybe you don't. Not a requirement necessarily, but you have those games that you're supposed to lose. And then there's usually about 5 to 6 games that it's kind of 50-50. And I know that Ole Miss game probably wasn't really 50-50 because you have Ole Miss at home or whatever, but it feels like they caught Ole Miss at a great time. I mean, that was not the best version of Ole Miss. I mean, that was probably the worst game they're going to play. Like, they're going to play the rest of the year. Felt like that was a prime opportunity. You can make the same argument for LSU. It seems like that might have been the worst game that LSU offense is going to play all year, and they kind of missed their opportunity there. BYU is what it is, but it's like, I just don't think you can kind of chalk them all up and be like, we were close here, we were close here, we were close here. It's like, if those are 50-50 games, you got to win some of those, and you can't spend all offseason being like, I hope things line up, and we can talk ourselves into wherever the best case scenario is, but it's like you got to win some of the games you're not supposed to win. Like every now and then, and it just feels like you can count on one hand over the last 4 years of games that they've really risen above and beaten someone they weren't supposed to beat. Like Ole Miss this past weekend.
Yeah. All right, Andrew. 19.5. We'll get you out with this. 19 and a hook. You think Arkansas can cover that?
I think they can cover it. I don't think they will. I feel like Bama offensively is not like firing on all cylinders, but I've watched Bama a lot, and it seems like they're
getting better, starting
to find a little bit of something. Like Jalen Milroe is not nearly as bad as people thought he was early on in the year. He definitely wasn't like the issue with this offense or anything. But Bama's got plenty of talent, and it seems like they're slowly but surely picking things up. And so I got a feeling that Arkansas is going to be in for a long one. But I don't think it's going to be like an indictment of Sam Pittman or anything. I just think this is going to be a tough matchup regardless, even if Arkansas was clicking. But I think 19.5. I think Bama can cover that one.
Yeah. And Milrose, he's a home run is what he is. He take it to the house on you on the ground and throws a good deep ball.
Absolutely.
All right, brother.
Well, I appreciate you, Trey.
Yeah, man.
Have a good one.
All right. Appreciate you, Andrew. That's Andrew Ellis, everybody. Again, you can follow him at Andrew Ellis 24/7. And he's been with us for over 2 years now and does just a fantastic job and just getting better and better the more time he's with us. So go check him out at Andrew Ellis 24/7 and follow him at HawgSports.com. All right, everybody, let's go to Danny West now. I know you guys are following Danny. Danny's been with us for a long time and does a great job. Danny, there's just so much recruiting stuff going on right now.
Yep. We're gonna need a 2-hour show today.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
It's just that time of year when you don't have any home games, and it's just kind of a bit of a lull in recruiting. But you know as well as I do that it's coming. And
it's coming.
Yeah, and then the transfer portal hits. I mean, how ridiculous though, Danny? Before we get into it. Like the NCAA shortened the window from 60 days to 45 on the transfer portal window. That didn't make a damn bit of difference. It's still too long. Like people don't realize that just means that's how long you have to get in the portal. It doesn't. Yeah. They can still recruit you out of the portal infinitely. Yeah. Up until the season starts. So it's almost just a pointless thing. I mean, you really need about 2 weeks to get into the portal.
I was hoping for a little more trimming than that, but hey, we'll take it. That's a start. Knock off 15 days. it helps a little bit. So you're right, buddy. That's coming down the pipe really soon. But as far as recruiting, we could start there. I'm sure you want to get into the games. But I'm going to try to bring a little positivity to the show today and talk about some of these committed guys who are playing really well. As seniors and juniors, we've got a couple of guys to talk about in the 2025 class. But if that's cool with you, I just want to run through some guys and say something positive this week, try to shake it up a little bit.
Let's hear it.
Switch up the mojo. I'm going to start with Charlie Collins at Little Rock Mules. Just a staggering stat line right now, Trey. 71 tackles, 25 tackles for loss. He's about midway through the season, by the way, regular season. 12 sacks, excuse me. Got 3 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, 4 pass breakups, a blocked punt. He's got 3 rushing touchdowns, a receiving touchdown. And Arkansas definitely needs to hold on to that guy. You know, other teams are still trying to get Charlie. To no surprise, he's one of the top defensive linemen in the country, and his statistics are backing that up right now. So that's a positive. Again, you know, teams are still coming at him, Trey. They just are. So got to hold on to that one. Let me clear my throat real quick. Hold on, Trey.
Let me clear my throat.
I had to put you on mute for that one. That was one of the old grandpa clearing up the throat right there. Hey, Jaden Ball, you know I talk about him. I try to mention him at least once a week on here just to prove my point. But I really like the guy out of Columbia High School in Decatur, Georgia, having a really good senior year through 7 games. He's got 854 rushing yards, 338 in receiving, 5 touchdowns, and he's got 35 tackles and an interception on defense. So, you know, a couple of guys there that stick out. Courtney Crutchfield, all 3 of your receivers really are doing a good job this season. Courtney Crutchfield has 7 or 8 touchdowns. C.J. Brown has about the same. And I want to say Ashton Bethel-Roman has 7 touchdowns on the year. So with that, I'll move to the 2025 quarterback commitment, Grayson Wilson. He's really having a good year, too, for CAC. And they won a thriller Friday night, 44-43. So I think they're 7-1. Sorry, Trey, I've got a little sickness going on here. We'll get through it. But Grayson has hit 68% for 1,900 yards and 24 passing touchdowns with only 1 pick. That's really, really good. And then he's rushed for almost 500 yards, 495 to be exact, with 8 more rushing touchdowns there. So, again, 7-1 on the year, I think, and that's a really good start. That's not to overshadow or skip past KJ Jackson, your 2024 quarterback commitment. Will throw his stats out there as well. He's thrown for 20 touchdowns with only 2 picks. He's rushed for 275, and he's got 4 touchdowns on the ground. I think he's 5-2 on the year. So, you know, I'm digging at the bottom here for any positive news I can find, but there it is, man. You've really got some good news on the way there with several of these guys showing out. That's what you want to see. I know everybody's tired of hearing about recruiting. None of those guys are offensive linemen who can go down to Alabama this week and help you win, right? Yeah. I get it, but I do think it's still important to see what you've got. They do have a really good class. I think they're still missing a few pieces, coincidentally, again, on the offensive and defensive fronts, but we'll see how they shake that out. And, of course, to nobody's surprise now, it wouldn't shock me at all if we see some heavy transfer options on the offensive line especially. I don't think that's fooling anybody or breaking any news there. But on the D-line too, man, you know, we've kind of seen a trend over the last 3 or 4 years under Coach Pitt. They're going to hit defensive tackles very heavily in the portal, and a lot of that is because you can't get the same equivalent as what your neighbors do, right, out of high school in the SEC. So I would fully expect that to continue again this year, of course, with the tragic passing of Deion Stutz. I mean, you talk about it from a people perspective all day, but at some point, I mean, that catches up with your football class too, right? It's just our job to talk about stuff like that. And, of course, they lost one there that I felt really good about. You think about last year, had a kid flip, Steven somebody from Georgia, Trey. I've got about 500 names every year, but they lost one to Auburn last year. Big fella out of Georgia. And I don't know, it's 2 years in a row where I think guys like that in a couple of years probably really would have helped you out on the D line. So taking the long way about it there. I would fully expect this is probably going to be another transfer class, where we see heavy on the interior defensive line as well as offense.
Danny West joining us. You can follow him at Danny West 24/7, the HawgSports recruiting analyst. Danny, how good is this 11 a.m. kickoff against Mississippi State in Fayetteville after 4 weeks on the road for recruiting? Sarcasm.
Yeah. Hey, you get what you get, man. You earned it.
Yeah.
You know,
you earned 11 o'clock
sucks.
games. Yep.
Yeah, and you have to wonder, like, maybe they would. I don't know this, but if you had beaten BYU, do you still get – I haven't seen the full slate of games for that week, but maybe you don't get stuck with an 11 if you have a little bit better record. I don't know, but it's definitely not ideal. I'm sure next week we'll start putting together visit lists, but definitely not expecting like a huge official visit weekend, which is not not surprising. Coach Pitt obviously does not like in-season, and most coaches don't like in-season officials anymore.
Yeah, definitely gone away from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to get away from that, and I totally agree with it. If you can get them there unofficially, have at it. But Trey, I wanted to get your opinion on something. I see they're doing away with these photo shoots for unofficial visitors. Have you seen this new ruling that came out, I want to say, last week? So, they're making a push to take away these big, fancy, professionally done photo shoots where you have outside, third-party photographers come in and take all these fancy pictures with backdrops and stuff. Now, my understanding was it's still going to be available for official visitors, but, you think about all those cookouts in July and all the junior days early in the year. That's always been a really big part of. A lot of times that's the hold up on a commitment. We're waiting on guys to get ready with their pictures and graphics. But
why?
Just wanted to get. I don't know.
Just to do something.
I evidently, but I thought that was. I don't know. Nobody's really talking about it, but I thought it was a pretty big deal. That's one of the. I would say if you ask 10 recruits, I bet more than half of them say that's by far their favorite part of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
They love that stuff. So I don't know. It struck me as weird that nobody's really talking about that. But,
that's
curious to see how that shakes out.
It's a weird ruling.
Yeah,
all right.
Another one from the NCAA. Weird ruling.
Yeah, let's do something else that's pointless. All right, Danny. Appreciate you, brother.
You got it, man.
All right, everybody. That's Danny West. You can follow him at Danny West 24/7 on Twitter. And if you want to read his VIP recruiting coverage, you need a subscription to HawgSports.com. And the good news for you is it's just $1 right now for your first month at HawgSports.com. More good news is that OzarksGo may be in your area. They're getting a foothold in Rogers. They're north of the tunnel and just spreading out day by day. So if you want to find out more about OzarksGo, go to OzarksGo.net/HAWG, or you can call them at 479-684-4900. It's a local company. So you're going to talk to somebody local. You're not going to get somebody in a call center who has no idea about the area and has to look up all this stuff. These people probably know what's going on with Razorback football right now, so you can talk to them about that if you need to as well. But reach out to our friends at OzarksGo.net/hog. They offer multi-bit, which is 2,500 megabits per second internet speed. They offer internet speeds of 1,000 megabits per second, which is called their Gigabit, and they offer several other tiers. A great rate. Very reliable. Two nice gentlemen came over to my house and hooked things up, and they were in and out. And everything has worked since that day, 2.5 years ago. Everything's worked. Never unplugged and replugged. None of that. Nobody's ever came, hey, Dad, I can't get the internet to work. Honey, my show's off. None of that. Just reliable service from our friends at OzarksGo. OzarksGo.net/HAWG. Find out if they're available in your area. Do you guys have any decent questions today, or is it just complaints? Let's see what we got. We'll take a look at it. We got to get out of here pretty quick, though, because we got practice and we got radio early today. I'm on 4:30 drive time today. It's kind of how it's been on Mondays because practice is at 5:10 during my segment. Don't want to miss that. Somebody asking about Sam Bakke. He could have helped him this year. He was injured, had a torn ACL preseason camp. Trey, you're beat before the game started. Get your lip off the keyboard. Go Hawks. Get your lip off the keyboard. Andrew has great takes, especially on here. Yeah, Andrew does a great job. We're going to bring you more of Andrew Ellis coming up soon. Don't worry about that. KJ needs to have a game he's capable of. Stop calling for Criswell. I agree, Cody. I mean, I think Criswell can play, but I don't think he's like the answer. I mean, we've seen KJ get it done. He needs to get out of his own head, I think. I think he's just probably a lot of pressure on him. I mean, like right now we're looking at KJ's situation thinking, going into the season, like this guy's got a chance, outside chance to maybe play his way into getting, a draft pick. And right now it's just you feel for him because it just looks like that's just not going to happen, Kind of the same deal we felt with Tyler Wilson. Tyler did get drafted, but obviously didn't stick in the NFL. I think things might have gone different from him had 2012 not went the way it did. Dylan Horton says, hell, move someone. And by that I mean like he would have gotten drafted higher instead of the 4th round, and a team might have felt more obligated to continue on with him and give him the shot that he deserved to get. Dylan Horton says, hell, move someone from the D-line to the O-line. I mean, at this point in the season, Dylan, it's just like that's a spring move, It's maybe a fall camp move. It's just not middle of the season. I mean, like even shuffling guys around like they tried to do and didn't work out, but that seemed like something that could be plausible, could possibly help them, but obviously it wasn't the right move. It's just these are moves you make at a different time of the season. So Dylan Horton says, why is there no Joey Sewer or Street? Might as well try them. No, they're not ready yet. That's not. KJ needs to have a game. Like Lane New says. Abby Green says, I just want to let you know that my name is pronounced Avi. Okay. Avi Green. And I think I was suggesting that in the last week, B. Bierman and Bennett. Okay, Avi. Tamara Bolding says, if your O-line can't block, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. That's absolutely right. Evan Baker says, the hardest part of the schedule is over after Saturday. Do you think they will salvage the last of the season and become bowl eligible? Let's see. I think that probably remember who they got. They got Mississippi State, and then they have a bye week, and then they're at Florida, and then is it Auburn, and then FIU, and then Missouri, I think. I mean, you got to win 4 of those. That's a tall order. They have to win the Mississippi State game. The Mississippi State game is a must-win. It's a must-win. And, I know people are frustrated with the season. It's not what you thought. It's not what you wanted. But you still have to battle and try to get to that 6th win. And then, what is that Missouri? Like, if they've got 5 wins going against Missouri, who Missouri is better than most people thought they were, but the game is in Fayetteville. There could be who knows what the sense is, the vibe, the feeling is around Sam Pittman or this team's, chances to get to a bowl game, because Missouri has certainly spoiled decent seasons by Arkansas in the past, where they brought, they've had pretty good teams and they've lost the game. So maybe Arkansas can turn that around on Missouri for once. Aaron Latham says, I think you can be a great position coach and a subpar head coach. As a head coach, you have to worry about the whole team and not the position group. Yes, I agree with that. Pittman's led him to 9 wins before. It's not like he's just had no success whatsoever, but it's obviously a trend downward. You go from 8 regular season wins, 9 with the bowl game, 6 regular season wins, 7 with the bowl game, and now you're looking like you're going to struggle just to get to a bowl game this year. That's not the trend that you want, especially when you've been here 4 years. And, the first year is tough with the COVID year. And it impacted the next year also. But again, if you guys aren't supporters of the transfer portal, like, how does this team look right now without a transfer portal? There's 9 players playing a key role on defense right now from the last transfer portal class. And that doesn't even count Nudie McLaughlin or Landon Jackson. Joey says, I don't understand how the OL play in the upperclassmen has been so poor. I can understand Limmer a little bit moving to center, and maybe he's just a guard. But Latham is the one that's been perplexing. I don't think I've ever seen him. Maybe he's injured, Pittman talked about hand injuries and stuff. Maybe that's something going on with Latham, but he's also jumping off sides and stuff. I mean, it's just so uncharacteristic of that guy. It's just surprising. I mean, it just is. Zachary Beeler says, Trey, what's your prediction for the basketball team national championship? Cody L. James, Final Four. I'll give you that. Final Four. I think they got potential to have a really good team. Curtis probably be better person to ask. Grant Baker, Andrew Ellis, probably all better people to ask than me on the basketball team, but I like the makeups of the team. Cody L. James says he knows it's a natty. Yeah, you knew what I was going to say. Tony Hawley says, I'm so ready for a change. No bowl game this year. Get a QB ready for next year. You know, my opinion on this is the best thing for Arkansas is, like, this doesn't – like, it hurts me that this is going this way for Sam, because I love Sam Pittman. I think he's a great guy. I think the kids love him. I want it to work out for him. I really do. And it's hard for me, and I know I have a job to do and go ask tough questions and stuff, and I do my job to the best of my ability. But at the same time, I'm not enjoying myself doing that. And I'm not enjoying it when I was doing it with Chad either. But with Chad, I could just see, you know, it was over. Like, this team was not fighting for this guy. This team did not believe in him. I mean, it was obvious. That's not the same thing that I'm seeing with Sam Pittman just when I go to practice, when I go to press conferences and stuff, when I talk to players, when I talk to people in and around the program. That is not the vibe that you get with Pittman. It's just not. And that's why it sucks that it's not working out, because it's hard to find a guy like that everybody believes in, but at the same time, that's not enough. Wins. You have to win. You have to win. That's the bottom line in this conference. Pittman knows it. You know it, and I know it. He has got to win if he's going to stick around here. So I see people saying stuff like, I hope they lose so they'll fire him. Get out of here. That's just ridiculous. That's a ridiculous attitude. I mean, only a child would say something like that, I think. I would assume these are, you know, like children saying that kind of stuff. All right. We're going to have to cut it off. I went longer than I wanted to anyway, but we do have practice, and I got to get to it. So, all right, everybody. I want to thank Andrew Ellis for joining us. Thanks for Danny West joining us. Appreciate all your questions. Sorry I wasn't able to get to all of them for you guys, but yeah, I got to get to practice. So we'll be back with you guys on Thursday for the primer. Hopefully have a representative from the Alabama side over here, and Curtis Wilkerson will be joining us as well. All that and more on the next episode of Hog Sports Live.